G'day everyone, Lee Randall here. Season 2, Bulwarks and Bulldust. I'm here with Marco Masia from MAN. Great to have you on board. Let's get Marco in the captain's chair and have a chat about marine power. G'day everyone, welcome back to Bulwarks and Bulldust Season 2, brought to you by Pantaenius Insurance. And today we are joined by Marco Masia, Director of Seapower, the Australasian dealer for MAN engines. Welcome, Marco.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show. So MAN, it's a company steeped in tradition, based in Augsburg in Germany.
That's right. Well, Augsburg and Nuremberg. So the MAN stands for Machine Fabrication, Augsburg and Nuremberg. So that's the link into MAN.
Yeah, right. Okay. I mean, I think everyone just uses the acronym MAN, right? So it's good to have a bit of background on that. Obviously, there's probably so many projects we could talk about that MAN are involved with, but what are some of the notable things going on at the moment?
Yeah, well, so for us, I mean, we concentrate on the high-speed engine side of the market from the engines out of Nuremberg. So, yeah, we've got a new engine which has been recently released, the new V12X 30 litre, which is quite exciting. But, yeah, we've been mucking around with all sorts of different technologies, hydrogen, hybrid. We're still going to be continuing on with the internal combustion engine as well. So, yeah, it's all full steam ahead.
A highly competitive marketplace. Obviously, you've got plenty of competitors in this space, especially where you want to be. What are some of the real underlying values for MAN when they're trying to put engines out there into the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've, I suppose, been known for many years of being sort of one of the most lightweight engines for the power we reproduce. So we've always had really good fuel economy, and the power to weight ratio, we've been the class leader in our segment of engines for quite a long time. So that's where they've always focused. We try and have a really flat torque curve from low RPM, so it gets boats out of the hole quite quickly. So that's sort of been the company focus for many years, is just, most fuel efficient engines and as light as we can make them and as strong and durable as possible.
So Horizon, Riviera, they've all been MAN users over the years. Who's the big client at the moment? Who's the big one?
Well, for us in Australia, Riviera is one of our biggest customers for an OEM sort of product. Peshawar in New Zealand is probably another big one. Then obviously we got the international boats, which sort of dealt through other means other than ourselves, but they're the big ones. And commercial is also our big market as well, so we're repowering and powering a lot of the commercial ferries and charter boats around the country as well. And
obviously we're dealing with a fairly volatile world economy at the moment with some interesting external pressure. You feel like your business is well set up to cope with those pressures?
Yeah, I think so. As I said, we've been around for a long time and we've weathered, plenty of storms in that sort of global arena. Again, our products, help sells itself. Obviously, when we've got something which is a class leader, when people are looking at, particularly in the commercial world, when they're looking at, operational costs and fuel costs, we really sort of can help, reduce that for the end customer. And again, with the pleasure side, having, lightweight and powerful engines also helps. So we've had a few, issues through COVID with, production delays. I think everyone did. But yeah, we relatively, we got through that, relatively easy. We sort of got in front of things to keep production going here in Australia. The last sort of 12 months has still been pretty strong as well. Pleasure boats, the pleasure boat industry sort of dropped off a little bit after COVID, but the commercial sector, which was dormant through COVID because, they were moving passengers, they've had to sort of, ramp back up into sort of normal speed and, spend money again and, get their vessels, running. So, it sort of balanced itself off for us in the sort of two markets.
You talked about production timing a little bit, and I guess it's a big part of your business, balancing that stock holding against your lead time. Obviously through COVID, there was a lot of horror stories about, well, you're not going to get an engine or you're not going to get this until 2027, but you feel like that's under control.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, for us, engine production's not too bad. Gearboxes are still a bit lagging behind, so our limiting factor more is to get a gearbox behind an engine than it is to get an engine out of the factory. So, yeah, we still carry stock, but yeah, gearboxes is the challenging one for us.
And so the propulsion side of the business is obviously the main thing, but there's also the auxiliary power. Anything latest and greatest coming out there that we should know about? Because I think generators is a pretty hot topic.
It is, yeah. I mean, so we look after a brand called Solé. So we've been doing that for the last 12 months. They're coming up with a new product, variable speed generators, just to give sort of more flexibility into a boat. We're also looking at putting power generation on our engines so we can utilize our engine performance. And again, our engines have some really nice, efficient sort of zones. So we're looking at putting variable speed generators on our main engines to supply power to the boat. And if that is mixed up with a bit of, battery power for house, we could sort of look at maybe reducing the overall dependency on the auxiliary generators for a boat as well. So that's something we're sort of playing around with, and hopefully we'll have maybe next year on the market. Sort of around the 20 to 50 kilowatt sort of generator drive off the front. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, coming off the front?
Coming off the front of the engine, yeah. So, boats where, be able to reduce their auxiliary generator size, maybe get rid of one, have one as a backup. And then depending on what mix they want to put in batteries, if they can keep enough power to keep overnight, well, ideally, you can not have any generator running at night time. That's sort of the ultimate goal.
And as far as, and John will talk to you more about the emissions stuff later on, but we've talked to a few of our other guests about greenwashing and about what's going on in the industry right now. Do you feel like one of our other guests talked a lot about the mapping and the detuning of the engines and really bringing the emissions down, the usages down of fuel. Do you feel like there's a lot of movement in that sort of area at the moment?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really complicated discussion.
I wouldn't have any complicated answer. I probably led you down a path there, but
yeah. I mean, look, obviously, being a European company, we're sort of at the forefront of emission levels. So in Europe, we run the highest emission now is Euro 5, which is using SCR, which is your AdBlue treatment, and then DPF filters. So that's the strictest. So we already have that and have done for, I think, the last 5 years. So it's available, and we've actually sold a set here in Australia for Queensland Marine Parks, which I'm pretty sure we're allowed to say. So there's certainly push by operators here to try and reduce their emissions. Obviously, Australia has an IMO 2 rule, which is quite an old specification. It expired in, I believe, 2017. So we went to IMO 3 and then Euro 5, which is higher again. So we've got, Queensland Marine Parks going Euro 5. Sea Link have gone IMO Tier 3 with the new vessels for Kangaroo Island. So there's certainly a push in the marketplace to bring some better emission technology to Australia. Obviously, MAN has also got hybrid and hydrogen dual fuel as well, which we got boats running in Europe. I don't see that coming to Australia anytime soon. There's some big financial and sort of technical challenges in infrastructure. I mean, just, getting it onto the boat, getting it through AMSA, there's a lot of hurdles still. But I think, there's certainly a push for it. There needs to be either legislation or more incentives by government for us to really start going down that path a lot more. And that's sort of why we've seen some customers go to Euro 5 or Tier 3, because it's not that expensive. And while they're not really tackling CO2, which is the buzzword, they're really reducing the NOxes and the particulate matter, which is, some of the real nasty stuff which comes out of an engine.
You got out of a really complicated question with a really elegant answer. I like it.
I hope that sort of made sense. Yeah.
Very well. Seapower, so you've been with the company for quite a while, I believe, 20 years, would that be right?
Almost 20 years.
20 years, so obviously you started very, very young. You must have been in the very early teens when you started in the business.
I think
watch it happen. Don't worry about the fact that that's illegal. You got to be 15 before you can start, but don't worry about that.
I can't see any grey hairs, so
that's the advantage. Not having hair, you can't see the greys. But it's almost 20 years with Seapower. Before that, I was with Caterpillar for 10 years. Started my time as a diesel mechanic.
He was 5 then, mate.
fair enough.
Yeah. 5 when you're a Caterpillar. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, good olive skin, mate. For the young people listening, so what was your sort of career pathway? Have you come up as a technical person, a diesel mechanic, or where did you all start?
Yeah, I actually started as a car mechanic. Did an apprenticeship for Holden. This is back in Western Australia. And then, did my apprenticeship, and there was another mining boom back then, and, all the path was, aligned with gold if you got into the diesel side. And, I sort of jumped over to Caterpillar back then. And, I did 3 years rebuilding engines and turbos and cylinder heads. And then a little job came up in the marine. They were creating a new marine department within the Caterpillar network. So he jumped over to that and, started my career on boats, doing field service work, commissioning engineer. And then I sort of jumped off into a project manager for new builds. And, then I joined Seapower after that as a business manager originally.
Terrific. It probably would be difficult to do what you do today without that sort of technical background and underpinning.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, for any young kids who are looking for a trade, I think, mechanics, whether it's automotive or diesel, I think there's still a big future in that. And it's a good career, as in there's so many different pathways you can go through. Obviously now I run and own the business, so it's, all started from, pushing spanners.
Sure. You bought the business a little while ago?
Yeah, about 4 months ago. But I've worked there almost 20 years, and there was.
And 1987, I think Seapower was formed. Is that correct?
Yeah, we go back to about.
It's an old brand and a well-known brand. Certainly has a lot of excellent products that it offers.
Yeah. So originally in the 80s, we were MAN. We've started with MAN in the late 80s. We're also a Volvo importer before VPO was created. So we've sort of played around in a few different fields over the years.
Yeah, okay. And a lot of good brand posture there with MAN. If you read some of their marketing collateral, they've got a pretty healthy sort of position on themselves when it comes to describing what they have and what they offer. It's pretty clear.
Yeah. No, it is. They're a great brand. I mean, now, most of our business is MAN, with obviously Solé, with the generators, and we have a couple other little brands here and there, but our core business is MAN.
Yeah, okay. We had an interesting chat with a guest recently talking about gensets and how they sort of sit outside the environment. So apparently they use different air to the rest of us, but getting used for battery recharging, and is there any movement in that sort of space, or it kind of is what it is at the moment? And
it is. Obviously we look after Solé, which is a Spanish generator manufacturer. Generators are a tricky one again when you talk about emissions and what they are, because they're small engines. They sort of fall at a different sort of side of rules than, say, our engines. From an MAN point of view, we don't do engines that small, for starters. So they're governed by international rules. So most of generators these days sort of fall below the higher emissions. Hence why we've been looking at putting generators in our engines, so we get, we should be able to produce a lot more power with using less fuel and less emissions as well.
Interesting discussion, I think yesterday was around larger engines and being more efficient as well. So, but obviously carting heavy battery loads around is not particularly efficient. We're all a big fan here of diesels and a litre of diesel and the power output out of a litre of diesel. But I guess never before has there been such scrutiny around product development and engine technology and efficiency. So that it probably puts the onus on everybody to do the very best that they can. But we all have to analyse, I guess, the bigger picture. And certainly greenwashing, something that Lee's raised. Everyone has to do their homework and not be, swayed by some of the marketing speak around it.
Yeah. Look, we've done a couple of joint projects with some commercial operators as well, looking at the feasibility of hybrid and hydrogen dual fuel. And that was a killer, was the weight really and the cost to get A to B.
So when you say weight, the tank to hold liquid hydrogen.
So it's gas hydrogen,
hydrogen,
the models
okay.
that we've got. So we've
Right.
got a few vessels operating in Europe, but so with, if you want to store, and I believe, don't quote me exactly, but 200 kilograms of gas, you basically need 5 ton of gas cylinders to store that.
Right.
And that 200 kilograms doesn't last very long. So you've got to basically refill that daily.
And why gas, not liquid, do you think?
Well, the engine needs it in the gas form. So as I said, it's early days with that technology. Obviously, we've got that working. And when it's working, we're up to 50% saturation of hydrogen to diesel. So it's quite a significant number if you take away the weight of the gas cylinders and the more power you need to push the boat from A to B. But, that technology is new and sort of trying to get it from liquid to gas is sort of what they're looking at next. Methanol is also another avenue in a liquid form. So, as I said, I think we're only just starting this journey of alternative fuels. And I don't think anyone really knows what's going to be the most viable option, in the next 10 years. But, there's certainly MAN's been playing around with that. Obviously hybrid, and we'll sort of see where the market takes us. For MAN in Europe, there's certain areas where you have to be electric now. They've legislated that rule. So whether it's the Thames Clippers or Lake Como or certain other areas, they're pushing for electric only. So they have to do something. So that's where, these vessels, I suppose, are operating because they have to. Whether overall they're reducing CO2, well, that's quite questionable, obviously, when you have the weight of batteries or, gas tanks. So,
yeah. Or you're plugging into a diesel generator to recharge the batteries.
You get that's right. That's a whole other argument as well. Yeah.
John wanted to pick you up on some of the technology around the new 12.
Well, look, I think there's we've been touching in a lot of areas. The whole discussion around fuel consumption and the emissions is not as simple as those two sort of variables. A more efficient engine by virtue of that does do a better process of burning, and it's reducing the amount of material that then needs to be processed, whether that's straight overboard or going through selective catalytic reduction. But I guess there are sort of two aspects to this. There's a wonderful new model that you alluded to earlier, but really you and I have had fantastic wide-ranging discussions over Tier 2 and Tier 3. Tier 2, really ultimately what it comes down to is it's a very wide band, whereas Tier 3 is much closer up to the final version. And what that final version in 10 years is going to be, as you've just indicated, is a very far-ranging and still incredibly open discussion. But if we come back to that discussion that you and I have had about Tier 2 and Tier 3, it's wonderful if you're in the upper end of Tier 2 because you won't need selective catalytic reduction, you won't need the AdBlue and all the rest of it. But let's face it, a lot of engines are very far back down at the bottom end of the Tier 2 band. Let's open up that discussion like we have done in the past, because you certainly were able to take me on a journey that allowed me to open my mind with more Tier 3. Marco, over to you on that one.
Yeah, so as I said, Tier 2 expired in 2017, and as I said, it's quite a broad spectrum of emissions. So, from up here to down here, and then IMO Tier 3, sort of that's where we hit SCR. So, we've repowered quite a lot of Tier 2 engines, which are still, and again, you can still reach IMO Tier 2 with a mechanical engine. So, go back to MAN, we've been doing common rail for over 20 years now, I believe it is. So again, just in that sort of side of thing, there's a massive gap between, a mechanical IMO2 engine and a Tier 2 common rail engine. We've repowered quite a lot of ferries, and we're sort of reducing their fuel burn anywhere from 20 to 30% over a year. So, I mean, that's quite significant reduction in CO2 for any operator, just going for a common rail Tier 2 engine. But then when you go to IMO 3, what we're really tackling is the NOxes and the particulates. So again, going back to what I was saying before, is they're the real nasty emissions which harm us as humans. There's bad for your lungs, and there's a whole heap of studies to say it's carcinogenic, all the rest of it. It's, the NOxes is a greenhouse gas. It sits in the ozone layer, contributes to acid rain. Hence why we started IMO, back in the late 70s to sort of reduce all of that. But as I said, we've repowered a couple of repowering Reef Ranger with Euro 5. So when we look at our IMO 2 engine to Euro 5, we're reducing those by 70%. So I think NOx is 75, particulates is 70%. So that's a massive reduction, and that's from our common rail Tier 2 engine, not to mention, say, a mechanical Tier 2 engine. So again, even if we adopted the European standards, we can do a hell of a lot better for the environment with, very little capital cost, as opposed to, some of the alternative fuels.
Fairly quick ROI, I would have thought, with that reduced fuel burn.
That's right. So even Euro 5, we actually do reduce our fuel burn by 5% as well. So we do have a reduction in CO2, again, because we can back off some of the fuel we're burning in the cylinder because we got the after exhaust treatment to deal with it. So we do have a small reduction in that, but yeah, the big one is the NOxes and particulates. And again, that's what we've seen sort of when you start looking at the big picture and you go, right, well, what can and can't we do, and what's good for the environment? Well, it's a good news story to say, and take my hats off to the, the operators which are doing that, because it is a massive reduction in emissions.
Exactly, and I think this is really the point that we're making, is that the discussion seems to always focus on CO2, which is not really the main harmful aspect here. We really want to stress that it is the other things, and that's where the work needs to be. So the holistic discussion has to include things like the new hybrid field generators on the front of the engine as opposed to a separate gen set, has to include the actual burn process, and has to deal with after treatment. And it's this much bigger box than just putting a 2 or a 3 label on it. And that's the discussion that you and I have had so deeply. And what we need to stress here on Bulwarks and Bulldust today is that it's a bigger picture. So if you're not aware of all of the components inside that, we'll put some links in the description below for you to go and click and read further about it, because to be informed in this space means that not only do you need to be current, but you need to look at the greater picture about what you're burning, for what use, when, how, and what the after treatment is.
That's right. And there's protections as well. I mean, so we talk about more of this in the commercial space because, let's face it, they're the vessels which are using a lot of diesel as opposed to the pleasure boats. And in, Europe, America, there's guidelines in place for the pleasure boats. So anything under 24 meters, you don't have to use SCR. So, we're not necessarily, going to have to redesign all our production boats. There's rules in place for boats under 24 meters as well. So, it's not that scary in the big picture either.
No, that's true. And I guess then the other really important thing you highlighted earlier, that gearboxes still remain a challenge in terms of obtaining them. When you do install for, say, Riviera, are you supplying the complete package, or are you merely, once the ice has been delivered, that's it? Or are you delivering a full package?
Yeah, so Riviera is a little bit different to most other marine businesses. So they use the V-Drive twin disc. So we're only supplying the engines for Riv. So that sort of takes that headache away from us and sort of puts that onto twin disc. Production boat build is a little bit easier because we sort of know in advance, what their production line is. So you're generally supplying gearboxes for, OEMs is a lot easier than, say, the by-spoke repowers or custom sort of boat builders. But yeah, for everyone else we do. And gearboxes, you can't really carry too much stock because there's so many different variants of ratios and whatnot. So it's, something really needs to be made to order.
And a commercially rated box is very different to a recreational box, and the weight and the structure and ratios, as you've mentioned, it all ends up being yet another set of quite complex constructions inside a box rule, basically. Probably one of the biggest, I guess you'd call it, developments and exciting developments, and again allows us to take a look at everything from how we're powering, what is the mass of the unit that's doing the powering, what vessels are powering, what can other supplies of power it can deliver to the house and so forth, would have to be V12X. I mean, a terribly exciting unit, a slight expansion in capacity over the 2,000 horsepower unit, which of course, originally there was sort of 15, 16, 17, 1800, 19, and finally 2000, but that's really about where that engine can go. 12X is so exciting because it's a slightly larger engine, but really, other than a pretty much similar footprint, it's all new. Rods, pistons, crankcase, heads, an unbelievable fuel pump at 2200, PSI. It's something quite out of the box. Let's have a lovely chat about 12X.
No, I mean, it's fantastic engine. It's obviously the designs off the old 2862 line, but as you said, it's been completely redesigned. So it's only a little bit heavier than the 2000 horsepower engine, but at an extra 200 horsepower. And I think there's still a bit more to go on that over the next few years, but we'll keep that guessing.
Keep the powder dry.
Yeah, that's right. But it's a really great engine. It's amazing what they've done in some of the internal design, particularly in the cylinder heads. So we've managed to get more air in and out of that engine. So we increased the displacement a little bit, but the key is really getting the air into it. So we've actually reduced the temperatures and pressures inside the cylinder and got more power, which is sort of generally you sort of, throwing more power, you're always increasing that till you sort of hit the limit, where we've sort of started below where we were with the 2000. So that sort of gives us a lot of scope to sort of move forward. But apart from that, it's, really quiet. It's even quieter again than the old engine. I'm really excited.
Are we talking about the turbo whistle or the actual exhaust note?
A little bit of both. So there's still a bit of turbo whistle, but the mechanical noise is really quiet. So it's sort of come down again from the old engine.
And the really important part to remember here is that if you're at 2200 horsepower and maybe a little bit more, we'll come back to that later, in a 12-cylinder packet, it challenges a lot of the 16-cylinder packets by virtue of a power to weight construction and therefore less fuel on board because you're burning less, and so on and so forth. So the mass of the vessel is less, therefore requiring less horsepower. But really, the big point out of all of this is cooling, because ultimately a diesel unit, a high-speed diesel unit, is running at phenomenal temperatures. You must put an enormous amount of raw water through that's then obviously got to cool the fresh as well. And once you've done all of that, you've got to cool the exhaust, because otherwise it'll take care of the very boat that it's on. And I think a lot of people don't realise how hot exhaust gas is, or diesel exhaust. How do you approach the cooling discussion in terms of it's a really critical aspect, and being an installer, being a supplier of engines to manufacturers, how do you start that discussion, and how do you find are consumers even asking the question about the cooling?
Look, it's really important. And obviously, when you look at the picture is, we supplying just an engine. So we're relying on the boat builder, to give us air, to give us water, to keep the engine running. And we have to also have a warranty on it. So for us, as soon as we sort of, sign the dotted line, the next step is making sure the design's right. So there's a lot of design application, while we're waiting for that engine to arrive, again, to make sure they've got big enough scoops, they've got big enough sea strainers, we've got enough air, for the engine to breathe in. So all that's super important. And the better we do that at the beginning, obviously, the lot easier it is for us when we, get the boat in the water and we do the sea trials. So, it really starts right at the beginning in trying to get that design right. And then when the boat hits the water, it's really up to us to, to do our commissioning really well, to check all those parameters. And again, if, something's outside, well, then we have to work with the shipbuilder to adjust it, to make sure that, that engine will have a long life in that vessel.
And I guess the same equation can be applied down to the 8-cylinder bracket, where at 1,300 horsepower, you are the largest deliverer of horsepower in that V8 category. The big thing is when you're running at full throttle, often it's only for about 8 minutes an hour before you must come back off. What are the specific load ratings for, say, V12X in terms of being allowed to run at wide open throttle?
Yeah, again, that's not an easy answer. That's a really complicated question. I mean, our engines are designed technically that you could go flat out all the time. There's no, the engine's not going to overheat. Obviously, if it's designed correctly. For us, it's more about how long is that engine going to last. So with our light duty rated engines, we sort of say around 20% or an average of 50%. So allowing for that whole sort of cyclic sort of time. But, we'll have navies or, patrol boats, which will have a light duty engine, and they'll just run them flat to the boards. The engine's only going to last a quarter of the time, as opposed to a normal engine, just wears out. So it's not necessarily restricted on how long we can go flat out, but it's more about the overall life of that engine. So the duty cycle and the time before overhaul, I suppose, is that magic sort of number. So we have sort of guidelines, particularly in the commercial world, medium duty, we like to sort of see at least 20,000 hours before any major works on it. That's based on, operating at that sort of 70% side. Again, they can go flat out if they're in a patrol boat, but they might only get, 5,000 hours, 6,000 hours. It's just how fast that engine's going to wear out on how hard they push it.
Exactly. So again, highlighting the absolutely critical need to maintain a significant, service regime. Does that include the option for telemetry, so that you're actually telling the client what's going on and when they have to do it?
Yeah, so with our electronics, so we monitor the load profile. So at any time, we have one of our service techs jump on board, we can download that data and see how hard they're pushing that engine, which is really good information for commercial guys. So we have that. We have the option for them to remote in. So we have called a remote access. So that can be live. So an operator can sort of plug into their MAN software and see what that is. Obviously alarms, and it's not just load blocks, but you get the full spectrum of engine electronics you can have remotely. And then for us, I mean, again, with our commercial guys, it's, keeping engaged with them, keeping an eye on the load profile, their maintenance schedule. And, the more that we get on top of that, the longer the engine will last. And, there's some applications where you might have to adjust the servicing profile just on, whether the fuel they're getting or the type of operation they're doing. Sometimes we can fine tune that a little bit to get the most out of it. So that's all part of the service we provide for our operators.
Definitely oil and filter's always a good thing.
Yeah, and look, and it's an interesting one. Sometimes you actually have to bring back the oil change, 100 hours because of the load profile. So we had a boat which was only doing a half an hour run followed by half an hour of sitting and idling, and we were having some issues. So we had to knock back the oil change 100 hours and the problem went away. So it's quite a complex sort of holistic approach you have to take with it.
Yeah, terrific. And I guess that brings into another discussion. Are all of the super high capacity, high speed, are they all on mineral oil, or are they still able to run, or do they require synthetic oil?
Yeah, so we can run on a semi-synthetic. We recommend a full synthetic. It's sort of a lot better oil. But we don't run any mineral oil anymore in our engines.
So basically thereby ensuring or trying to ensure those spans with the adjustment according to usage pattern.
Correct. That's right. And, again, if they're using, high sulfur fuel, there's sort of, little adjustments you need to make with that. And, obviously biofuel's another one people are starting to look at, which has its own unique challenges as well.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, the amount of material and I guess luxury ultimately that's going on to vessels, it basically stands for weight. You may as well call all of them weight, 10 fridges, 5 ice makers and all the rest of it, marble bench tops. So, the requirement for horsepower is significant, but obviously that requirement for horsepower comes with certain concerns and certain parameters that you ignore at your own peril.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And obviously, again, the other big importance is getting the propeller right as well. So, that could have a massive effect on, the engine life as well, not having that set up correctly as
and
well.
The box.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And the box is connected to the main donk, which ultimately, it's a symbiotic circle.
That's right. And it's funny actually. When I first started, this 20 years ago, there was an old sales guy I used to work with, and he always told me, Marco, he goes, never talk about religion, politics, or propellers. That was his rule in life. So.
Wise person, I think. Wise person. Look, it's a terribly exciting area, and it's been so great to at least establish these kinds of greater views that will deliver the answers. And I do implore everybody to expand their minds into those greater scenarios, because you will get a better result, whether you're a pleasure craft, whether you're a commercial vessel, a builder or an owner, or somebody looking to repower. The more you understand the wider set of parameters, the better the outcome will be for you.
Yep, correct.
As everyone's aware, season 1, we had a panel discussion on boat shows. So we've obviously been talking to a lot of people about boat shows. Brave man that buys a new business or buys a business 2 months before a major international boat show. So
especially when you've got to lug those
so
diesels.
Exactly right. So talk to us about Santrico Boat Show. How was it?
Yeah, look, it wasn't too bad. Boat shows for us is a big investment. There's a lot of logistics which goes to getting a couple of big engines on the stand. It's always a fun time. Look, we used to do Sydney and Sanctuary Cove. We pulled out of Sydney a long time ago when they knocked down the convention centre. But Sanctuary Cove, we sort of pulled out for a while and then we're back again. For us, it's a good event to have that opportunity to catch up with the industry. I think that's really the main reason we do it. We get a lot of customers from all around Australia, New Zealand. We get a lot of commercial guys, funnily enough, come to Sanctuary Cove. A lot of ferry operators and charter operators. So really it's just, a good opportunity to sit down and have a chat, have a beer with these guys. Generally for us, we're always too busy stuck in front of the laptop to, get out and see people. So for us, that's the main advantage of the boat show. We don't bother about bringing the FPOS machine. We don't necessarily sell an MAN engine at the show, but
no one's pulling up with a unit or a truck and saying
or anything like that. But it helps. If someone's sort of toying up between us or a competitor, it can sometimes help swing them one way or the other. The main thing for us is really just networking. All our service dealers come. We have 25 dealers around the country. Most of them come, so it's for us, it's more just a very expensive networking opportunity.
Is it an expensive networking opportunity that you're going to continue to invest in?
I wasn't going to go there actually, but right.
Yeah, we look at it every year, and every year we go, we really don't want to spend that sort of money, and we end up spending it anyway. So I dare say we'll be there again next year. But
So it's pretty central to your marketing arsenal, if you like, but it's about relationships and solidifying relationships, catching up with people.
Yeah, it is.
And that's really key to it, as you said. So and if you're not there, what message does it? What message does that send?
Right. That's right. So it's be more talk if we're not there than if we're there. But
sure.
Yeah.
I think our panel's been all about just improving, forcing a bit of change, forcing some discussion. and getting more feedback from industry that hopefully will flow through to Malfa and improve the product for everybody.
Yeah, well, I listened to your last sort of vodcast on that, and it was quite interesting. And again, I think we'd be in favour to sort of get rid of some of the trailer boat side of things and have it more of a larger vessel boat show. That would make more sense for us, for sure. I mean, this year I'm sure the numbers were down. We didn't see as much foot traffic, but we had more customers and sort of industry people come and see us. So, yeah, for us, I think if it was a little bit more focused, made it a little bit easier to get in and out, or I don't know, different location, I'm not too sure. But I mean, yeah, we do like the show for that.
Was that even on the weekend? Less sort of punters coming through with the ice creams and the kids? And...
ice cream and the kids, and will that fit in my dinghy, or my Land Cruiser? Yeah, we had a lot less of those comments, but
will that fit in my dinghy?
But the Thursday, Friday,
I want to see that Land Cruiser with a 27 litre in it
and horsepower in it. Yeah, but yeah, the Thursday, Friday is the day for us. It's as I said, everyone comes in from around the country. Commercial pleasure and everything else. So, I mean, we were flat out those 2 days. The weekends, it was sort of counting down the hours and, yeah.
Okay. So it's a thumbs up from you for boat shows at this point, but
we'd like it to be cheaper and,
It's cheaper and a bit more focused.
A little bit more focused, I think, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this will all go back to Claire Back, who will be coming on the show very soon, we hope. Yes.
Yep.
Thanks again for tuning in to Bulwarks and Bulldust Season 2 with thanks to our season sponsors Pantaenius. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you can find us. Thanks again to Marco Masia from Seapower and MAN Engines Australasia. Thanks for joining us. Great to have you on board.
Thanks for having us, and I really love the show, and I think it's great.
A big shout out to Sonia as well. Thank you her so much for her comments and her interest.
No worries.
Thanks, Marco.
Catch you next time. Well, thanks for being on the show, Marco. Great to have you on board. Here's your hat.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks to Pantaenius for Season 2 of Bulwarks and Bulldust, and thanks for your time.
No worries. Thank you.